Hi, Nick Licameli here. I'm just flipping through the November 2018 edition of Real Simple magazine, and I turned to page 91, and there's an article titled The Exercise Fix. Physical activity can be as effective as meds at easing certain health problems, especially if you know exactly what workout is best. So I had the honor of contributing to this article in Real Simple magazine. The author interviewed me for about a half hour and took bits and pieces to add to the article. It's all about how exercise can help with different things like depression, PMS, low back pain, and that's where I came in. I contributed a section on low back pain and exercise. What follows is the interview, the entire interview, with the questions popping up and then my answers that followed. Be sure to pick up the November 2018 edition of Real Simple magazine. I hope you enjoy. Thank you so much for the opportunity here. I really look forward to this stuff. I think that there's a misconception about low back pain, and usually it's less about structures like herniated discs or something being misaligned, and it's more to do with movement. Um, so in my experience, the number one cause is an inability to move properly for your individual body type and poor body awareness. So usually working on the mechanics of bending and squatting and lifting, that usually gets at the root cause. It doesn't just focus on the symptoms, right? So like um, things like massage, stretching, foam rolling, acupuncture, all these things. I mean, they may help in the short term, but if you do all those things and then you're still moving poorly and you're still having, poor body mechanics, it's not gonna have lasting change. And an analogy I like to use to explain this to my patients is if you have a leaky ceiling, you could either keep replacing the ceiling tiles or you could fix the hole in the roof. A lot of times, treating back pain is less to do with like doing more or treating some or trying a different technique and more to do with finding what provokes your individual pain and stopping those activities. Things like if prolonged standing gives you back pain at work, you could either, like you're saying, you don't want to rest, but you also want to exercise. So what do? Well, if prolonged standing hurts, maybe you could try weight shifting to one side or adding a little step, to put your foot on at the workstation or take some sitting breaks. Another common one is prolonged sitting and driving. Um, so you could either avoid the activity altogether or you can modify it. You can add a lumbar support to the back. You could change the position of your pelvis, adjust the seat, closer or further away from the gas pedal, different things like that. The elderly picking up things from the floor, for example, they can use a reacher and a little gripper instead of bending over and picking it up. So definitely just like you're saying, the answer is usually not rest. I mean, some cases, yes, you want to kind of rest, but for the most part, it's continuing your activities and your exercise, but just modifying it to stop provoking it. So if we want to stop a car, we have to make sure we not only pump the brake, but also take our foot off the gas. I think it would just prolong the root cause of whatever was going on, and our bodies are made to move. So a lot of times things like especially posture, everyone kind of says, oh, everyone has forward shoulders, a rounded upper back, and a forward head because of computers and cell phones. But really, there's no bad posture. It's just when we don't move out of that posture. So it's okay to sit hunched forward, but it's not okay to not get out of that position. So a lot of times when you just kind of rest, something like the spine, it wants to move. So a lot of times that will could make the problem worse. Yeah, it's definitely possible. Sometimes, our bodies are imperfect. As much as we like to think that we're perfect, our bodies, we're not perfect structures. So little aches and pains, muscle strains, they can happen not because there's some kind of, serious underlying issue with the spine. It could just be maybe you had a bad night's sleep that night and you woke up when your muscles were a little bit uh, higher tone than usual, or maybe you didn't drink quite as much water the day before. There's so many different things that can kind of lead to those little tweaks, or muscle strains, and yeah, a lot of times those are just a matter of letting it resolve on its own, not provoking it. Not necessarily have to see a professional. It can't hurt. I would always recommend that, but yeah, sometimes they seem to resolve on its own, and I think sometimes that's an issue because then if it keeps happening, then the person kind of says, "Oh, well, it's gone away in the past, so I'm good." But if it keeps happening, then something is wrong and should get checked out. Movement helps lubricate the discs in the spine. There's actually studies where they show less fluid around the discs. After decreased activity, and then as movement happens and we weight bear and fluid, lubricates the discs more. Muscle stiffness, nerves are also very very important because nerves travel through muscle tissue, so they start in the spine and then they kind of weave in and out of muscle like a piece of like linguine going through a steak. So if those nerves aren't able to glide back and forth as you move, that can also cause irritation of the back. So movement also helps the mobility of nerves, as well as muscles and joints. The main thing with exercise and low back pain is properly engaging the core, um, and like what that even means. So the core, what is it? I mean, it's basically, for me, it's all the muscles from the upper back, the lower back, the pelvis, and even the hips. It's definitely not just the abs. It's kind of could be Yeah, it kind of could be looked at like a carbonated bottle of soda or seltzer or something, and the from the top down you have the diaphragm, and then from the bottom up you have the pelvic floor, and then around the center, like a corset, you have the abdominals. So all of those borders, all of those things, those structures that make up the core, they all have to be properly engaged, because otherwise it would be like turning the bottle open a little bit, and then it relieves that pressure. So you could pretty much stand on a bottle that isn't open, but once you crack that can or once you open that bottle, forget it. It's going to fall right from under you because you're losing all of that pressure and that built up stability. It's almost Our muscles are like I keep using like analogies and metaphors, but it just helps explain it better. Um, it's almost like our spine is like a stack of like toilet paper, or like a Jenga, like a Jenga stack, and our muscles are like duct tape that surrounds it nice and tight. Um, So that's great. It's nice and stable. But if we don't engage those muscles, if we don't call upon them, then we're kind of leaving it out to dry. And the way that the core should be braced, it's a breath in, and then it's pulling up on the pelvic floor, almost like holding in like gas or urine, and then tightening up around the midsection, almost like you're going into a cold pool and the water's kind of drifting up to your navel. You want to kind of imagine that, and then keep a neutral spine for all the way from the head all the way to the lower back, and then use that abdominal bracing to lock that neutral spine in anytime you move. And again, that's where most of my treatment and success comes, is teaching people how to do that and maneuver like that. I think it's a combination of all, but most importantly, most importantly, and this is definitely supported by the research, is that the most important thing with any kind of exercise routine or diet or anything like that is adherence. So and consistency. So if someone, for example, hates running or hates going to the gym, if that person thinks that that's the only way that they can exercise, they're not going to adhere to it. They're not going to be happy. They're not going to be consistent. So the most important thing, and what I would recommend, is find something that the person likes. So find something that they enjoy, because exercise, there's so many different ways to train aerobics, exercise, the aerobic system, to train flexibility, mobility. I mean, just walking is training mobility of the hips, if you think about it. So I would say the whatever kind of exercise you do, whether you like going for a walk, whether you're a swimmer, whether you like bike riding, whatever it is, just do that and stay consistent with it. And it can't hurt to see like a physical therapist even beforehand if you don't have pain, because then they can do an assessment and they can kind of see, okay, I see you bike ride 5 days a week. The position of yourself on the bike is kind of hunched over and more bent forward. So let's add in some of these some of these stretches after you get off the bike to kind of counteract that. So that definitely most important thing with that is finding something that they're going to adhere to, and then a qualified healthcare practitioner will do a good assessment, individualized assessment. Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for having me. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe if you want, and be sure to pick up the November 2018 issue of Real Simple magazine at a store near you. And we'll see you next time.